On this episode of China Uncensored, just a few more years and we might see China invading Taiwan. They already have a plan. Welcome back to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. War never changes, especially when it involves the threat of a war between China and the United States. I just hope we survive the fallout. Now I know you're all still probably caught up in the current threat of war with North Korea. But I'm here to pile on a little more terror on top of that. Can't have you people getting soft on me, can I? The Chinese regime has laid out a detailed, comprehensive plan to invade Taiwan by the year 2020. That's according to this book by Ian Easton of the Project 2049 Research Institute. The 300-page book brought together public and leaked documents from the Chinese People's Liberation Army. But our first clue something was up came back in 2012. At the 2012 18th Party Congress, Xi Jinping said he was committed to continue the 2020 plan, whereby we build and deploy a complete operational capability to use force against Taiwan by that year. Of course, the 2020 plan to invade Taiwan was a plan to invade Taiwan by 2020. How could we have been so blind? I guess hindsight is easier to see things in. The invasion plans involve the coordinated efforts of every branch of the Chinese military: the ground forces, Navy, Army, Air Forces, the Marine Corps, and the Rocket Force. Those are the guys responsible for China's ballistic missiles. And of course, the Team Rocket Forces control China's Pokemon. According to those documents, the Taiwan invasion comes in 3 parts. It begins with a 15-day pre-invasion bombardment. Taiwan would be subject to a massive bombardment of ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and bombers against military targets on the island. Then comes the amphibious landing of 400,000 Chinese troops. As for the actual invasion, China has been training for that as well. They've even created a mock-up of the Taiwan presidential palace so troops can practice. And the plan is bloody. Military operations will emphasize speed and surprise to overwhelm coastal defenses and create so much destruction in the early phase that Taiwan would surrender before the U.S. military can deploy forces to the area. And that is the key. Fast action before the U.S. can respond, because the U.S. will respond. According to the 1979 Taiwan Relations Act, the United States has to come to Taiwan's defense if there is an invasion. And since the U.S. already has 2 squadrons of Air Force fighters, 4,000 Marines, and a whole lot of Navy warships, submarines, and bombers in Japan and Guam, those could be deployed pretty quickly. And a gathering of Chinese troops in the south of the country might be a good tip-off that something's about to go down. Also, the bombarding Taiwan with missiles part. The U.S. would definitely know by that point. So, a Chinese invasion of Taiwan inevitably means a strong likelihood of war between China and the U.S. The book by Project 2049 says, no one seemed clear on exactly what might happen, but all we're sure is a future Chinese surprise attack would be worse than Pearl Harbor and 9/11 combined. Nah way, that doesn't go far enough. It's like Pearl Harbor, plus 9/11, plus the sacking of Rome in 410 AD, plus the 1960 World Series where the Pirates somehow beat the Yankees. Taiwan is a problem for the Chinese Communist Party. For one, its political independence is a constant reminder that the Chinese regime doesn't have the power to do whatever it wants. Also, it has democracy. And that blows a giant hole in the CCP's line about how Chinese people just aren't ready for democracy and require the CCP to have a harmonious society. So that's why, all along, the Chinese regime is using non-lethal means, psychological, diplomatic, propaganda, and informational warfare against Taiwan. Once these are exhausted, the plan for large-scale amphibious assault will be carried out. Now maybe you're wondering, why the wait? Why hasn't China already invaded? Turns out, that nearly happened. This article by Ian Easton describes how Mao planned to invade Taiwan as early as 1950. I've included the link below and on our website because it's a fantastic read. Basically, there was a massive spy operation in place, secretly undermining the fledgling Taiwanese government. It really was like a spy novel. Through sheer luck, the spy ring fell apart, putting a big hiccup in Mao's plans. Then the Korean War broke out, and Mao redirected his troops to fight the U.S. By the time that was done, Taiwan had been too well established and backed by the United States for an invasion to happen. Which brings us to the new invasion plans for 2020. Oh my gosh, that's only 3 years from now. That's the year we'll have giant fighting robots. Or giant fighting robots. Does that mean we're going to see an invasion of Taiwan, possibly with robots? Not necessarily. The Chinese military looks intimidating, but it's more of a political organization than a fighting force. It hasn't been in a war since a 1979 attack on Vietnam, which did not go so well for China. So drafting up plans for a Taiwan invasion might be more about jockeying for position within the Chinese military rather than practical battle plans, because you'd have to be blind to miss the potential consequences of getting into a war with the United States. Also, China right now simply doesn't have the ships needed to carry that many troops across the Taiwan Strait. So even though the CCP has a well-documented plan for a Taiwan invasion, it might not be ready to carry out by 2020, or might just decide it's too risky, or they don't have enough robots. On the other hand, now that Xi Jinping has elevated himself to new levels of power in the Communist Party, he may be looking for a chance to showcase his might. We'll find out in 3 years, I guess. What do you think? Leave your comments below. Thanks for watching this episode of China Uncensored. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Chappell. See you next time. I figured it out. I know how to save Taiwan. Just line the coast with piles upon piles of stinky tofu. That'll stop the PLA. In the meantime, go to ChinaUncensored.tv, where you can catch full half-hour episodes of China Uncensored every Friday for free.